All right, so after everyone got to see the debate, as some people have been calling it, including Dan Pfeiffer, the first debate of the election season, and we got a good night's sleep, and we got to digest what happened, and from what I could see, Kamala Harris won. And yes, I watched the debate, and Trump was acting like he was in a rally, even though there were no audience. Kamala Harris baited him. He took the bait because he's a moron. But this is a fact-checking video, so let's get right to the fact-checking. So let's start with from the beginning. This is an NPR fact check in real time. So we're starting from the beginning of the debate. So let's start with the economy. Trump said, "I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation, perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else." And now everybody knows what he has for breakfast. So, let's get to the fact check. Inflation soared to a 4-decade high of 9.1% in 2022, according to the Consumer Price Index. While inflation has since fallen to 2.9% as of July, and actually the latest inflation report came out and it's now down to 2.5%. Prices, particularly food prices, are still higher than many Americans would like. Other countries have also faced high inflation in the wake of the pandemic, as tangled supply chains struggled to keep pace with surging demand. Russia's invasion of Ukraine also fueled inflation by driving up energy and food prices worldwide. Okay, and so we have a graph, so I'm going to turn you around so you can see the graph. Just a moment. All right, so here it says annual inflation drops below 3%, remains higher than before the pandemic. So just look at that. Obviously, they didn't take the latest numbers into account because, like I said, it has dropped to 2.5%. Hey, all right. So there is that. So actually, let me see. Wait, what just happened here? Okay, this graph is moving just by my very, very strange. Okay. So let's continue. All right. Sorry about that. Way too close up of me. Government spending in the U.S. under both the Biden-Harris administration and Trump also may have contributed, putting more money in people's pockets and enabling them to keep spending in the face of high prices. All right. While high prices are a source of frustration for many Americans, the average worker has more buying power today than she did before the pandemic. Since February 2020, just before the pandemic took hold in the U.S., consumer prices have risen 21.6%, while average wages have risen 23%. Many prices were depressed early in the pandemic. However, so the comparison is less flattering if you start the clock when President Biden and Vice President Harris took office. Since early 2021, consumer prices have risen 19.6%, while average wages have risen 16.9%. Wage gains have been outpacing price increases for over a year, so that gap should eventually close. Now, I might also add that there are companies, and actually we would see Kroger, the Kroger CEO actually admit this in a letter or an email or whatever. And sorry, if you can hear that, my phone is ringing. So, they admitted that they have been taking advantage of inflation to raise prices even more because people will just blame inflation and nobody will notice that the greedy fucks are being greedy fucks. So yeah, this fact check isn't bringing that up, which, I mean, I realize it's in real time, but you could I don't know, you wrote that much. You could have wrote more, I guess. So, let's move on to the next fact check. And this is from Kamala Harris. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. At the height of the Great Depression in 1933, the national unemployment rate was near 25%, according to the Franklin D. Roosevelt Presidential Library. At the start of the COVID pandemic, the unemployment rate peaked at 14.8% in April 2020, a level not seen since 1948, according to the Congressional Research Service. But by the time Trump left office, unemployment had fallen to a lower but still elevated level. The January 2021 unemployment rate was 6.3%. Now, how much of that is truly unemployment, because there are those who just give up, and how much of that was truly unemployment? I don't know. Because again, they don't mention that part. All right, let's move to immigration, which, oh boy, that was a fun discussion. All right. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. Oh my God, you're seriously fact-checking this? Okay. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They're taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden let into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. Okay, the reason I had that outburst was I thought that they were going to fact check the part about how they're stealing dogs and eating them. I'm glad that that's not part of the fact check, because that is just absurd. Okay. Trump attacked Harris and Biden's record on immigration, arguing that they're failing to stem people from other countries from entering the U.S. and causing violence. In the last 2 years, more than 40,000 Venezuelan immigrants have arrived in the Denver metro area, and it is true that many now live in Aurora. A few weeks ago, a video of gang members in Aurora, Colorado apartment building had right-wing media declaring the city's takeover by Venezuelan gangs. NPR looked into these claims. Shortly after the video appeared, Colorado's Republican Party sent a fundraising letter claiming the state is under violent attack and Venezuelan gangs have taken over Aurora. It's also true Aurora police have recently arrested 10 members of a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua, but Aurora's interim police chief, Heather Morris, said there's no evidence of a gang takeover in apartment buildings in her city. All right. What's more, violent crime, including murder, robbery, and rape, is way down nationwide, according to the most recent data from the FBI, which was pointed out to Trump in the debate. Notably, analysts predict violent crime rates this year will fall back down to where they were before they surged during the pandemic and may even approach a 50-year low. Now, okay, before I say anything, Trump also claims that migrants are driving up crime rates in the U.S. That is not true. Researchers from Stanford University found that since the 1960s, immigrants have been 60% less likely to be incarcerated than people born in the U.S. The Cato Institute, a libertarian think tank, found undocumented immigrants in Texas were 37% less likely to be convicted of a crime. Now, he also, when Trump was fact-checked about crime going down, and that according to FBI statistics, he poo-pooed the FBI statistics, and then he started rambling about how they weren't looking at certain cities or something. I couldn't follow it. Then again, it's hard to follow a lot of what Trump says. Anyway, moving on. Again, Trump. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. Yes, they're fact-checking this stupid. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. You know, I remember this when the Hmong first moved into the area. People always were concerned that when their pets went missing, because pets do that, especially cats, it was assumed that the Hmong kidnapped them and were eating them. And, so yeah, it's nice to know that isn't exclusive to Hmong anymore. Yikes. All right. This remark refers to a debunked, dehumanizing claim that Haitian migrants living in Springfield, Ohio, are abducting pets and eating them. The claim, which local police say is baseless, first circulated among far-right activists, local Republicans, and neo-Nazis before being picked up by congressional leaders, vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance, and others. A well-known advocate for the Haitian community says she received a wave of racist harassment after Vance shared the theory on social media. The Springfield News-Sun reported that local police said that incidents of pets being stolen or eaten were not something that's on our radar right now. That paper said the unsubstantiated claim seemed to have started with a post in a Springfield Facebook group that was widely shared across social media. The claim is the latest example of Trump leaning into an anti-immigrant rhetoric. Since entering the political arena in 2015, Trump accused immigrants of being criminals, rapists, or poisoning the blood of our nation. Which, yeah, that phrase doesn't sound familiar at all. Nope. Couldn't possibly have been uttered by Hitler. No, that never happened. Alright, if there's anything else I want to say about this section. Nope. I believe I covered this section. So let's get to the next claim. And again, it's Trump. Do you see a pattern here? All right. A lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, Democrats are trying to get them to vote. No, Democrats are not trying to get them to vote. I mean, if they ever become citizens, then yeah, just like Democrats get any U.S. citizen to vote. But, no, they're not bringing illegal immigrants in, and they're sure as hell not trying to get them to vote. But he is doing this to advance the notion that voter suppression should be a thing. But let's see what NPR has to say. It is illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections, and there is no credible evidence that it is happening in significant numbers, or that there is an effort underway to illegally register undocumented immigrants to vote this election. Just as an aside, I just looked at my state's ballot, and there is a referendum question on there, and it is about changing our Constitution to ensure that only U.S. citizens over 18 can vote. Because as it stands now, it says every U.S. citizen can vote. It, to my knowledge, doesn't even have an age restriction. But this will change it to only U.S. citizens. And I just absolutely hate that I have to vote yes for this. Simply because, well, yeah, only U.S. citizens should vote. The problem is, this doesn't have to happen because we're solving a problem that doesn't exist. So, and I just hate that, yeah, I have no choice but to vote yes and agree with this referendum, which Republicans are pushing simply because they want to show how they're anti-crime or something. How much you want to bet that this is going to be used to prevent people who don't look like U.S. citizens, namely black and brown people, from voting? Of course, how you're going to explain that to Native Americans? Yeah, because yes, I live in an area where there are reservations. So, but anyway, moving on with the fact check. Voter registration forms require voters to sign an oath under penalty of perjury that they are U.S. citizens. If a non-citizen lies about their citizenship on a registration form and votes, they have created a paper trail of a crime that is punishable with jail time and deportation. And guess what? We catch these people. So it's not like we have a bad system. We actually catch the cheats. All these things that the Republicans are doing, they are just trying to do it to ensure that they can then point to an innocent person who is actually a U.S. citizen and try to prevent them from voting. Maybe they have the same name as a non-citizen, or maybe they just don't look like U.S. citizens, or whatever the hell is going on through those pea brains. The deterrent is incredibly strong, David Becker, executive director of the Center for Election Innovation and Research, told NPR. Election officials routinely verify information on voter registration forms, which ask registrants for either a driver's license number or the last 4 digits of Social Security numbers, which, fun fact, illegal immigrants do not have. Why? Because they're not citizens. In 2016, the Brennan Center for Justice surveyed local election officials in 42 jurisdictions with high immigrant populations and found 30 cases of suspected non-citizens voting out of 23.5 million votes cast, or 0.0001%. So that's 1 millionth of a percent. Are you kidding me? Yeah. 1 millionth of a percent. And people are losing their shit that non-citizens are voting. Oh my God. Maybe one person voted in a state. Wow. I mean, the fact that we're catching them should tell you that this isn't a big problem. All right. Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger launched an audit in 2022 that found fewer than 1,700 suspected non-citizens had attempted to register to vote over the past 25 years. None were able to vote. Because again, we have a system in place. We do not need to add anything to a constitution or whatever else to prevent non-citizens from voting. They already aren't. And those who try get caught. And I actually saw this in one of my comments. And it is just absolutely hilarious how this person who claims to be a poll worker And I say claims because based on what they wrote, they either were a poll worker and are a complete moron, or they're just trying to cause up trouble. Or both. That's also a possibility. Because they claimed that the handwriting on the ballot envelope doesn't match the ballot. Now, if anybody has actually voted absentee or actually voted at a voting booth, you do not sign anything. You do not put your handwriting on a ballot. Nobody's handwriting is on a freaking ballot. Now, there might be on the back the municipal clerk's signature, but so obviously the ballot envelope of absentee voters, obviously they're not going to match that, because why would the municipal clerk be voting 81 million times or whatever it was for absentee voting? That's stupid. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next fact check. So Trump. Harris was the border czar. No, she wasn't. Remember that she was the border czar. Republicans had taken to calling Harris the border czar as a way to blame her for increased migration to the U.S. and what they see as a border security policy failures of the Biden administration. There is no actual border czar position. In 2021, President Biden tasked Harris with addressing the root causes of migration from Central America, which is what Obama did to Biden when they took office. The root causes strategy identifies, prioritizes, and coordinates actions to improve security, governance, human rights, and economic conditions in the region, the White House said in a statement. It integrates various U.S. government tools, including diplomacy, foreign assistance, public diplomacy, and sanctions. While Harris has been scrutinized on the right, immigration advocates have also criticized Harris, including for comments in 2021 where she warned prospective migrants, "Do not come." Well, yeah, they were trying to ease the flow. I get that, but if you're desperate to leave a situation that's horrible, whether it be because you're concerned about your life, and by that I mean literally your life, that you might end up getting killed by cartels or gangs or whatever, you are going to try to come even if you don't end up getting in, because anything is preferable to the hell you are living in. So I get that just saying "do not come," not great, because the best way to prevent illegal immigration, which a lot of these people are actually asylum seekers and not illegal immigrants, but the best way to prevent a surge of migration is to, help the countries to make sure that they're not, that they become countries where they're places that people want to live. Because obviously, if you are proud of your country, if you feel like you can have a future in that country, you're not going to want to leave. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be perfect. No country's perfect. But it's not to the point where you feel the need to move thousands of miles away. And sometimes it's just, the breadwinner of the family doing it and leaving their family behind simply because they'll just make money, send it back, that sort of thing. So yeah, the best way is to coordinate and make sure that the countries that are that these people are coming from, that they improve their situation to the point where those people will not want to leave, and possibly the people who moved here will want to go back. Anyway, so abortion. You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month, and probably after birth. Now, I don't have to read this fact check to tell you that no, that doesn't happen after birth. That's called infanticide. And if it is happening in the 3rd trimester, something went horribly, horribly wrong. And it isn't just a woman deciding, you know what, I don't feel like being pregnant anymore. I've been pregnant for 6 months. I'm entering my 3rd trimester, and yeah, I can't handle it anymore. I can't do it. So I'm just going to have an abortion. No, that's not happening. Anyway, let's go to the fact check. As ABC News anchor Lindsay Davis mentioned during her real-time fact check, there is no state where it is legal to kill a baby after birth. Trump called it execution. Because he wants to execute his political enemies, probably. A report from KFF earlier this year also noted that abortions after birth are illegal in every state. I can't believe that we need to fact check this. According to the Pew Research Center, the overwhelming majority of abortions, 93%, take place during the 1st trimester. Pew says 1% take place after 21 weeks. Most of those take place before 24 weeks, the approximate timeline for fetal viability, according to a report by KFF Health News. So there you have it. All right. A separate analysis from KFF earlier this year noted that later abortions are expensive to obtain and offered by relatively few providers and often occur because of medical complications or because patients face barriers earlier in their pregnancies. Nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That isn't happening. It's insulting to women of America, Harris said. Harris also invoked religion in her response, arguing that one does not have to abandon their faith to agree that the government should not control reproductive health decisions. You would think that that's true, but apparently there are way too many people who think their faith trumps everything else, and that everybody should agree with their beliefs, and hence their beliefs should become law, because they're Christian nationalists. But, yeah. I mean, look at Joe Biden. Personally, he is pro-life. But he's a pro-choice president because he understands that not everybody thinks like him. Not everybody is a Catholic. So why the hell would he want to force his religious beliefs on other people? Moving on. As Davis also noted, Trump has offered mixed messages about abortion over the course of the campaign. He has bragged about his instrumental role in overturning Roe v. Wade while appearing to backpedal on an issue that polling makes clear is a liability for Republicans. Right, because first he's, proud that he put in place the Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade, and he takes credit for that. But on the other hand, he also knows that there are plenty of women on both sides of the aisle who like to have the option, because abortion isn't just about this narrow little sliver of women who are, promiscuous or whatever the hell people think women who get abortions are. Whatever myth. I just got rid of a subscriber who seem to have that lodged in her craw, and no matter how many times you tell her that that is not the case, nope, refuses to believe it. But so he does that. But recently he said that he would veto a abortion ban because the campaign realizes that this is a losing issue for Republicans. Because, like I said, most people on both sides of the aisle, both Democrats and Republicans, want to have that option because that procedure is done for some miscarriages, if not all or most miscarriages. There are other reasons to take the one of the drugs that constitutes the abortion pill cocktail. There are so many reasons that women need these procedures done or these medications, and an abortion ban would just, yeah. And then he claimed in the debate that he's for exceptions. And I've mentioned this in my previous videos that on paper, exceptions sound great. Unfortunately, in practice, it's a question of at what point do you accept that this exception is really an exception, especially when it comes to the life of the mother. So he claims he's for exceptions, but as Harris quite rightly pointed out, by allowing the states, which he claims now is where he wants it to be. He wants it to be in the states. Harris has pointed out in states where there is a ban, even if there are exceptions, there are women who can't get the care that they need because doctors are afraid of what's going to happen if they care for a woman who has a miscarriage and is bleeding out in a car because they're worried about going to jail. So, or that there are women who can barely afford to even have a kid. Now she has to make all these expenses, and it would be great if she has a support system to help her, but even her support system might not have the money to go to another state or another city, depending on how abortion is run in that state. I guess that there could be certain cities where they're still allowing it, but go somewhere far away where you know nobody to get an abortion, which how is that any better than, that's no better than an abortion ban. Because, I mean, okay, great, she can go somewhere, but depending on how far she might have to go and the expense, both physically and mentally, to get to where she needs to go, and to do it within a certain amount of time, that is stressful, and that is something nobody wants. Even though Trump is insistent that everybody on both sides wanted him to get rid of Roe v. Wade. So, and he even threw his own vice presidential nominee under the bus. J.D. Vance said, when it was pointed out that J.D. Vance said that you would veto an abortion ban, he basically is like, yeah, we don't talk. I know nothing about. If J.D. Vance thinks that, fine. So yeah, That's another reason, just right there, to not vote for Trump. I mean, who would want a president who will throw his own vice president under a bus, which, I mean, he was already willing to let a violent mob hang his previous vice president, so this shouldn't surprise you. But now, first there's that, what he did to Mike Pence, and now with J.D. Vance, he's like basically saying, if you're not doing what I want, I'll throw you under a bus. If I'll do whatever is right for me, and everybody who claims to be my ally, well, they're fair game. They're not really allies. They're just temporary allies while they're useful for me. Okay, let's move on to Afghanistan, and this one is a bit messy. So, Trump, the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. Trump and Republicans in Congress say President Biden is to blame for the fall of Kabul to the Taliban 3 years ago, and amid the chaotic rush at the airport where 13 U.S. troops died in a suicide bomb attack that killed nearly 200 Afghan civilians trying to flee. Of late, Republicans have been emphasizing Harris's role, but the Afghanistan war spanned 4 U.S. presidencies, and it's important to note that it was the Trump administration that signed a peace deal that was basically a quick exit plan. And even while Trump was trying to beat his chest about how great of a plan he came up with the Taliban, could not resist being racist. Because here's a hint. The leader of the Taliban is not named Abdul, but that's obviously the only Arabic name he can think of, so he went with that one. Because, yeah, that's how things work. Just say the leader of the Taliban if you can't remember his name. Nobody will blame you. Anyway, Trump regularly claims that there were no casualties in Afghanistan for 18 months under his administration, and it's not true according to Pentagon records. So yeah, was the withdrawal a bit of a clusterfuck? Absolutely. A lot of people equated it to the fall of Saigon. So, yeah, not a great look. Now, obviously, there was a lot wrong with what happened there, but for crying out loud, Trump didn't make a deal with the Afghan government. He made a deal with the Taliban. What the hell? So, and he also accused us of leaving military equipment. Yeah, the military equipment that was left behind was rendered useless before they left. It's not like people could, find a tank and hop on and go for a joyride. That's not what happened. Anyway, moving on. This one is a Harris one. All right, military policy. So Harris said, there is not one member of the military who is in an active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world for the first time this century. This is a common administrative talking point, and it's technically true, but thousands of troops in Iraq and on the Syrian border are still in very dangerous terrain. U.S. troops died in Jordan in January on a base that keeps watch over the war with ISIS in Syria. All right. Now let's go to fracking. And again, Harris. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. So the fact check. When she first ran for president in 2019, Harris said that she was firmly in favor of banning fracking, a stance she later abandoned when she joined President Biden's campaign as his running mate. In an interview with CNN last month, Harris attempted to explain why her position has changed from being against fracking to being in favor of it. What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a clean energy economy without banning fracking, Harris told CNN's Dana Bash. Under the Biden-Harris administration, the U.S. produced a record amount of oil last year, averaging 12.9 million barrels per day. That eclipsed the previous record of 12.3 million barrels per day set under Trump in 2019. 2023 was also a record year for domestic production of natural gas. Much of the domestic boom in oil and gas production is a result of hydraulic fracturing or fracking techniques. In addition to record oil and gas production, the Biden-Harris administration has also coincided with rapid growth of solar and wind power. Meanwhile, coal has declined as a source of electricity. All right. So, moving on to healthcare. This is back to Trump. I had a choice to make. Do I save the Affordable Care Act and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. Now, I believe this was actually fact-checked during the debate, if I remember correctly. During his presidency, Trump undermined the Affordable Care Act in many ways. For instance, by slashing funding for advertising and free navigators who help people sign up for a health insurance plan on healthcare.gov. And rather than deciding to save the ACA, he tried hard to get Congress to repeal it and failed. When pushed Tuesday on what health policy he would put in its place, he said he had a concept of a plan. And I might add, and people seem to miss this, he said, I'm just the candidate. I still have time to work things out. You had time to work things out when you were the president. This isn't like someone who has never held power before. You held power. This isn't like this is something new that you discovered. You tried to replace it many, many times, saying you had something better, and you never did have anything better. Anyway, the Biden administration has reversed course from Trump's management of the Affordable Care Act. Increased subsidies have made premiums more affordable in the marketplace, and enrollment has surged. The uninsurance rate has dropped to its lowest point ever during the Biden administration. The Affordable Care Act was passed in 2010 and is entrenched in the healthcare system. Republicans successfully ran against Obamacare for about a decade, but it has faded as a campaign issue this year. All right, let's see if there's anything I wanted to add. All right. So that is all I have for NPR's fact check, but just a little fun addition. Not necessarily a fact check, just some of the absolutely bonkers things he said. Now, if you may recall, he did a rally where he claimed that children were having gender reassignment surgery in school. Well, at the debate, he actually merged that concept with immigrants, saying that the Democrats are performing gender reassignment surgeries on these migrants and letting them loose into the country. It's like, what? Okay, Trump has gone complete cuckoo bananas. That didn't even begin to make sense. And a lot of people who are not chronically online, terminally online, probably were like, what the hell is this man talking about? So, let me see if there was anything else that stood out for me on the debate. Let's see. Well, Kamala Harris caught herself. I'm pretty sure she didn't want to call Trump a former president. I'm not sure what word she wanted to use, if she wanted to go all F-bomb on him or what, but she caught herself. So that was interesting. Nice display of self-control that you're like, nope, can't say that. Because, as people of my channel know, I do not have that self-control. For the most part, I swear. I think I'm getting better, but it still happens. Let's see what else stood out for me for the debate. Oh yeah, how many times she baited Trump with, like, his rallies, his crowd sizes, and then instead of answering the question on policy, he took the bait and started talking about his rally sizes. He made one good point, and that was at his closing argument, which probably most people don't listen to because they're like, oh, the debate's over, it's just closing arguments, turn off the TV. And that is, the plans that Harris has, well, she had 3.5 years to implement them. Number one, she's the vice president. She doesn't have a lot of power. And you were in the power, you were president, you should know that. Of course, the same thing can be said for you. But yeah, that was actually a good comment. But, unfortunately, he went so cuckoo bananas throughout the debate that his one or two observations that he made didn't matter much because it went nowhere. I believe that is all I have about this debate. And so yeah, that's all I have for this video. And if something else comes up about the debate or anything else. Oh, before I go, after the debate, to further push Trump into hell, Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris. For those of you who follow Trump on Truth Social and think that she actually endorsed Trump, she never did. That was AI generated. She had nothing to do with that. She absolutely hates Trump. She was probably waiting till now, even though she said that was what started her down this road. She probably wanted to wait to see how this debate went because of what happened the last debate. She wanted to make sure that Harris was able to talk and chew gum at the same time, which she was able to do. So she came out and endorsed, and we all know how powerful Taylor Swift is. The Swifties are not to be messed with. Actually, they're so powerful that even Taylor Swift can't completely control them anymore. Anyway, with that, I believe that's all I have for this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.